Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Hartofilis.
Hi, Coach Charlie. What's going on?
Oh, not much. How are you, John?
Doing great. I'm really excited to have you on. It's funny, we've been connected on LinkedIn, and I would always see, number one, thank you so much for supporting the show and liking our content. But we had so many mutuals. I was like, wow, this is so cool. We have so much in common in the industry. I'm really so excited to have you on.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be on as well. And thanks for reaching out to me and asking me to come on. I'm a huge basketball junkie just like you, and just love to talk hoops.
Of course, that's what it's all about, and it's what brings us all together. I'm kind of curious, when we talk about this passion for basketball, for you, where did it kind of start? When you were younger, just out of college and kind of going to a coaching journey? What did the start of it all look like?
As a young kid, I played a lot of sports, and I was kind of a late bloomer to basketball. But once I started playing basketball, I fell in love. Like, it was the sport where I don't always tell kids to specialize in a sport, but once I fell in love with basketball, I just got rid of all the other sports I played and just focused just on basketball. You know, it's just one of those things I love playing. I played all the way up till I was in my 30s, then I had back surgery, and it kind of took a different turn where I don't play as much. But at the young age of 20, I was a student assistant at a junior college. Worked under a Hall of Fame coach that he used to be Western Michigan's coach way back in the day. He actually even coached against Magic Johnson when he played at Michigan State. So I kind of went down that road, helped him out, and then I got into coaching. I coached all over the area. And then along the way, I actually started a semi-pro basketball team called the Grand Rapids Flight and the Holland Blast. Had success there. And then just, you know, I did that. I went the pro route. I worked for Synergy Sports Technology, breaking down, you know, college, international, and pro games. And then I just missed coaching so badly because when I was young, I would work camps like 11 a summer. I coached girls and boys because they're during different seasons, and AAU. So I was just really involved in coaching, and then taking those 6 years off when I was just doing the pro thing where I was just the guy finding talent and putting teams together. And I just really missed it. So I went back into coaching. And then this time I just really dove really deep into the game, just studied it. Right now I'm involved. I do all the playbooks for Championship Productions videos. I have 5 videos out right now. Anything from something different like the Aviation offense, the cherry picking system, different ways to look at the game, like UCLP, misdirection, pin down offense. And it's just one of those things where I fell in love with it. Recently, I became an ambassador for V-Reps. It turns your plays into 3D plays. Just run a business where I've been creating playbooks. I think over the last 2 years, we've created over 300 playbooks. So it's just something, you know, I enjoy doing and do it on my off time. And then my full-time gig is I'm an athletic director at West Michigan Aviation Academy and the boys varsity basketball coach here, which is extremely fun. We have a good group of kids. This year we're 11-4 and hoping to make a run in the districts. But one of our opponents in the second round could be Kobe Buffkin that plays at J.R. Christian. He signed to go to University of Michigan. He's a 4-star, so it should be a big challenge for our group of kids.
It's so much fun. I can't really wait to dive deep into all the coaching stuff we're doing now, whether it's, of course, with the playbooks, with your team currently, and your quest for that championship. What I'm really curious about, when you brought it up briefly, right in the middle of all that, was you being a 20-year-old coach, both doing boys, girls, AAU, kind of just everything. Can you kind of walk us through that, and maybe why did you do all of that? Because I'm at the same age now, and I'm also, whether it's coaching, that's podcast, doing all these different things, and so are many of our listeners. What was it that made you want to do that and kind of go into basketball at that time? And in terms of what the end goal was, like what kind of drove you to do that? And then while doing that, like kind of how did you go about doing so many different teams at the same time?
Well, at that age, you know, I knew that I wasn't going to be a player anymore. And, you know, I just wasn't at that level, the college level. So I thought, you know what, I love the game. I really want to coach. I want to move up. And I just, you know, I got plugged in with Coach Schultz over at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, and I'd work all his camps and help him out. And then, you know, from there, we did I started working other camps. So I reached out to Bob Hurley, in New York, worked his Reebok camp, worked McCracken camps in our area, worked a 5-star camp. And it was just one of those things where I just wanted to network. And I thought I wanted to go in the direction of coaching college. And I thought, it'd be a good way to get out there. And then, just girls were in the fall at that time. Now in Michigan, it's during the same time, girls and boys. So you couldn't do that. But at the time back when I was younger, you could. So, it's actually, I coached at 2 different schools. So I'd coach one team, the girls, and, do all their off-season stuff. At the same time, I was coaching the boys in the winter. And then I'd turn around and just make it work, for the summer, where you can make sure that you're not overlapping, and did the summer stuff. And then, there's a local AAU team in the area, and I coached them as well, and just made it work. I didn't have kids at the time. I was young, and I just wanted to surround myself around as much basketball as I could and just really learn the game. And I was blessed to have really good mentors around me at that time as well.
It's so important in thinking about the mentors that you had that allowed you to coach at all those levels and do all that thing and kind of embrace that coaching grind head on. I'm curious, as you kind of got a little older, and we touched on a little bit about your maybe your basketball operations roles. And when you were the director of operations for the Holland Blast, Grand Rapids Flight, what did that? Because of course we'll talk about all your coaching, but what made that so different, and what made you enjoy the ops side a little bit during with those clubs?
Sure. Well, I always told everyone my ultimate dream would be, to be an NBA scout, or something at that level where you're just diagramming plays. And at the time, it fell into my lap to start this franchise, and I had other business partners, and they ended up becoming the majority owners just because I didn't have a deep pocket to run a team. And then I ended up just kind of put myself in position to be that director of basketball operations. And it was just something new at the time. And I thought it would be a lot of fun and hopefully move my way up. And what it ended up doing is it really helped you network with agents and college basketball coaches, because you're always looking for the next talent for your team. And it's not like the typical high level pros where there's a draft and you can build your team through the draft. This is all like basically, it's almost like a college job where you're recruiting talent from local colleges, guys that want to really sell themselves to get overseas, and just dove deep into that. We ended up our second year, we bought the second franchise. We went from the Grand Rapids Flight, that was the highest scoring team in sports. We were scoring 146 points a game. And then we ended up buying a second franchise, the Holland Blast. And that first year that we had both, we got out of the 29 teams all over the West and East Coast. And we got both of our teams into the Final Four. Both teams were about 5 points off of playing each other for the championship. So that would have been exciting. I was blessed to get the Executive of the Year award in the IBL. And it was fun. And then the next year, it was just too hard financially to run 2 teams. In the Flight, we brought on Sun Ming Ming, who's the tallest player to play, 7'9". And by adding him, we were able to position ourselves to sell the franchise and get out of some of the debt that we accrued. And then we just focus on one franchise, the Holland Blast. So it was a lot of fun. And that's when I got into taking a sports management worldwide class. And then I got to where I could work for Synergy Sports Technology. And I did that on the side where I was just one of their loggers.
I'm curious because when you mentioned Synergy Sports, it's kind of a buzzword in the NBA when they talk about, you have to learn Synergy, and I know that platform. Same thing with it's very similar to maybe the other things that you've been doing with all the diagramming plays and stuff. Can you talk a little about that Synergy role that you played, and because it's a program that everyone talks about in the league, but really it's funny how everyone talks about it, but no one really knows on the outside what it really how important it is.
Oh, sure. Every NBA team has Synergy, and basically what it is a player can get on his plane for a flight to the next game, and he can already watch film on who he's guarding, and coaches can start game planning because it's live. They do the NBA stuff live, and to be how advanced it is. Let's use an example. Harrison Barnes, you can click on him and it'll show every shot he took coming off of pick and roll, or you can, every 3 he took. So you got to do the NBA games live. Then the college and international aren't live because, that's just draft preparation or players that they're looking at. But basically a phase 1 logger would be the guy that's clicking in and time out. So you were basically, taking all the dead time away and then logging the free throws. And then basically the game clips were ready for that phase 2 logger to go in and, chart everything. They chart so many metrics. I think at the time it's around 150, something like that. Yeah.
Oh,
And the other thing to plug too is a business that I own is E3 Analytics, and I work with Samario Clancy from the Dallas Mavericks, and he's on their basketball analytics team. And basically, we are trying to come up with 400, or we have over 400 metrics that we track. We want to be an analytics team for high schools that can't afford a full analytics team, or even small colleges. And I mean, we're just trying to be unique and tracking different ways to help team get the advantage to because everyone has huddle, or everyone has some kind of, source to get video and stats, and we want to be the advantage. So basically we're coming up with like an example I use is checkpoints. So we always talk about playing fast, and it's that first 3 seconds, how you're transitioning from defense to offense. So we measure, can the 5 beat his 5 down when he's a rim runner, and when we see who wins those checkpoints, or can your 2s and 3s get out to the deep corner? Can they beat their guy down? Can they lift correctly? And it's just little things that you can chart to help yourself, like points per possession on ball reversal. What's big for us is 6-0 runs, because we felt if you get 4 of them in a game, you win like 92% of your games. So that's huge. So we'll do 6-0 runs, and therefore it can play into your team, because if your bench is going, we're on a 4-0 run, you're screaming it to your team, this possession's important, even though it's in the middle of the third quarter, your team will just step up and play that much harder.
It's huge in thinking about how you could track that sort of thing, because especially, like, for example, our varsity coach McGrain will always talk about things like a 6-0 run, or like rim running and beating your guy down the court, but there's never really been stats for that, especially at the high school level. So it's really cool thinking about how you guys do that. And I'm thinking that to go from 150 to 400, those are the kind of metrics that you guys are using, things like checkpoints, things like that. Is there anything else maybe that really makes E3 Hoops Analytics really stand out?
The thing is we'll work. So like every Sunday, our game plan is, we haven't launched officially yet. We're still working on the back end of our platform, but once we have that done, we'll be ready to go. But yeah, we're just trying to talk to the coaches too and see what helps them win. Our biggest thing for me is custom playbook customization, to where every play, so you can chart what's working, what's not, different lineups in the game of sets that are working, because you don't know until your team runs it. It might look good on paper, but you want to know if it's working and what to scrap, and if you have different lineups in the game, what's been working with that lineup. And same thing with defense. Like if you're a trapping team, and we're a half court 1-2-2 defense. So I want to know what's working with what lineup is our 1-2-2 working, what lineup is our best for man-to-man defense, or what's our best full court trap, and therefore, if you're using these metrics and you're really diving into your team and studying your team, you're going to know what gives you the best chance to win games.
So cool thinking about all of that. I kind of wanted to transition over to some of the stuff you're doing with Playbooks, because the analytics stuff is great, but the way that you kind of those analytics come through executing plays properly and making sure that everything's organized. So I'm curious, with Championship Productions, is that the main thing you use for all these Playbook things? Are there other things that you've kind of aligned yourself with?
When I first started off, I had a video as Elevation Offense, and it was through Championship Productions. That kind of gave me my start. And then I got reached out by CoachTube. Layson Perkins asked me to come on CoachTube and start creating content and selling it. So I just started creating playbooks on offenses and defense that I liked, and sold it. And then my thing is, I want to be different. I feel like everyone kind of runs the same stuff, and I wanted to kind of dive into things that are a little bit different that could work. So then when CoachTube reached out to me, I thought it'd be perfect to start, getting out different things. We created the UCLAP offense, the Elevation offense, a scissors offense, and we were just trying to put things together that were a little different, that had continuity. And that was kind of my niche, is creating new stuff or hybrid and, offenses together. And, then I'd reach out to coaches too that run a little bit different, like Alicia Komaki. She's the coach at Sierra Canyon for the girls, where LeBron plays. She's won 4 state titles in 5 years, and she runs a fully Iverson offense. So I thought it was unique. So we did a playbook with her, and that was kind of my thing, is just finding, a different way to play the game, but to be successful. And so we dove into that. And then we also created playbooks of some of the best actions in college basketball. Like we have a ultimate Iverson playbook, or we also have one that's all on diamond sets. And and it was fun doing that, and kind of built a little bit of a name for myself. And we started getting more and more coaches buying the playbooks. Some of them were bad at first, but we keep getting better and better. And then we created a nice format that's a little different that coaches are really starting to like. It's easy to follow, easy to use. And then Championship Productions, who I had one video with, reached out and they said, would you like to do playbooks for all of our videos so we can sell playbooks as well? And now we're up to over 120 and counting. Some very good stuff. So it's some of their best videos. And now you have the chance to buy the video and watch and look at the playbook, so you kind of see, or you can just buy one or the other. That's kind of taken off. So it's a lot of fun, and we're doing all their playbooks for them, or all their videos we're turning into playbooks. And that's what kind of we're focused on right now until we get around 150 to 200. And once we get there, then I'll probably start diving in once my basketball season ends, and creating new innovative basketball concepts.
It's so cool. I can't wait to see those new concepts. And it got me thinking about the kind of wrinkles that you can run out of so many of these plays. Like, for example, an Iverson, the Iverson series, everyone knows about the Iverson Cup, but there's obviously so many different wrinkles you could add to expand on that, which is what makes it a full playbook. Can you kind of detail what maybe the thought process goes into thinking about how to add wrinkles? Do you look at one maybe action and then say, how can we combine this action with another action? Is it kind of that fusing of actions? Is it more so taking an action just and changing the position that the action takes place in? Where do you probably start when looking at something like that?
Everything you just said it's kind of through the thought process. So it's, there's sometimes where it's a really cool action, and I'm like, as a coach, that would be hard if we combined the UCLA offense into a misdirection pin down. And then you just had an automatic UCLA screener, and then you had a pin down screener that you teach because basically the offense starts, you swing it to a wing, you come through the UCLA ball screen, the other guard pops, you hit them, and then now that guy that's chasing the guy through the UCLA ball screen's got to turn around and guard a pin down. And it's a wide pin down, so it's a lot of action. It's hard to guard. The only way to really guard it that we found out was switching it. And then if you switch it, it's an automatic post touch. You just catch it and throw it down to the post. But we turn that into a continuity offense. And that's just kind of what we do. We see some actions that we like and then turn it into an overall offense, either whether it's continuity or it could just be an action. I'm big on the horn sets. So right now we have a set that we do, and we kind of turned it into a series where it's a horns flare series, to where you throw it to the big pop in, run them off a flare screen, the guard that threw the pass. You can misdirect it instead of pin down on the opposite side, or you can have the guy curl, or you can have him curl and pin down. So we basically turned it into a series, and that's what I'm always looking for. Like we got a lot of views on our 4-1 zone defense. I just thought it was unique, and it's different area where you're guarding, because now when a team comes out, they don't know whether to go odd front or even front. Most of the time you probably, since you're going against an even front, you throw an odd front to attack it, and then there's counters to it. So it's just one of those things. We just want to stay on the up and up, what's trending, why it's working, why it's not, and just be able to come up with cool new offenses or defenses. And that's kind of something that I'm always thinking of. So where other coaches are thinking about game planning, I'm thinking of what can be different that can make it work. Our cherry picking system is really, really unique, just because people think, oh, you're just cherry picking. But there's an article a while back on Vivek Ranadiv, the Sacramento Kings owner, and he said that the NBA should look into some cherry picking. I know that he was innovative to where he hired a G League coach, Grinnell's Dave Arsenal's son. They had a little success of running that Grinnell system at the G League level. So from that day on, I was always thinking how you could run a cherry picking system. And I thought, you could just match up 5-on-5 and just leak out. And a lot of teams do it, like Chino Hills did it. I was blessed about 2 years ago to have a really good assistant coach, and they're really good at trapping. But what they did every day is they played 4-on-5 defense. And it's a drill that we use here now every day. And it teaches you to be early, to have ball pressures, not a zone. And it teaches you to rotate quick, and, who's guarding two people at all times. And it gets you thinking. And we started getting pretty good at it. And I'm like, well, if we just put a cherry picker out and we focus on that, and we have a circle blitz drill, and we get really good at it, can you change the game? And we've ran it in some games, and teams come down on offense too, and they don't know really what to do. They're like, we're going against 4 people. Do we space it? And by the time they figure out what to do, we've had a couple easy transition, easy baskets. So, but yeah, I mean, we're always looking too for, it's one of those things where, I just have a passion for seeing what differently are people doing. But ultimately the game still comes down to being able to play in the quarter court. And, we do stress that with our kids.
Definitely super important to make sure that but there's so many different ways to go about doing this. That's why it's so interesting that people might hear cherry picking. And when you said it at first, I really wanted to ask you a full question about it. Thank you for going into it, because it's so interesting how people might think that it's some wacky tactic, right? Or something that can't really be practiced or game plan against, but playing 4-on-5 defense, that makes your 5-on-5 defense much better if for in that half court set. So all those things kind of play hand in. It's great thinking about that. But I want to move into you mentioned a little bit at the beginning about V-reps and their 3D plays. And I thought that was just so cool. I'm thinking about the way it kept diagram. Maybe it can help people that are more visual learners, that even seeing all those X's and O's or the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s on a piece of paper doesn't really do it for them. How have you seen success in that? And is it complicated making it 3D? Does it take a lot of time, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's actually really easy where, I'm always a big fast model guy. I've used fast model for, I can't even tell you, 20 years, or however long. And it's pretty good at it where I can drop a play or a playbook pretty fast. And I've always been a big fan. I still am, but then V-reps, I saw it one time and I'm like, holy cow, you could make a play at 3D and it looks like a video game and kids can learn it. So, I reached out to them at the time to try out their product, and I just couldn't believe how easy it was to set up. And then you can have a voiceover so I can talk on it, and then I can send it to my team and they respond and they can learn plays easier with this app. So I just fell in love. I think it's the next big thing. I really do. I think if V-reps gets out in enough people, they'll be able to really be able to take off, just because it's so unique and it's such a easy way to learn the game. Kids are already playing video games. You can actually see, you can write the guy's name on there so they can follow themselves. There's just a lot to it, and they keep adding to it. I know that they work with some NBA teams to where they do, they use second spectrum where they're using the data visualization. They can grab that information and just make a playbook out of it. So it's really state of the art, like new technology, where I think every coach should just get a file. And the cool thing is it's free for coaches to draw plays up, send them to their team, and it's really easy. So you go on your laptop and that's how you draw it, and then you open it on your phone and that's when it's 3D. So it's really cool, and you can send it on to your players. It's easy to copy and paste and send it out. But the other feature, the one that costs a little bit of money, what's completely worth it, is you can have your team sign up, and then you can send your plays to your team. So you'll have like a virtual playbook, and there's quizzes to where kids are taking quizzes. So they know exactly what you're running. And it's probably the best way to get kids to really learn and memorize your playbook.
Fantastic. When I first started and I was 18 coaching, I thought I was super cool because I had Fast Draw on the iPad and I would take it out and draw plays up in it. But this seems really innovative, and I always try to keep it fresh every year. So this is definitely something I'm going to look at when we get off the call, to make sure that I'm staying as current as possible and can always have something fresh. So that's really cool, thinking about using just all these new technologies to really make picking up X's and O's even easier. I'm curious too, because it's become so, the game has become so widespread, and all these coaches are learning from each other. High school coaching has improved by so much over the last few years, and everyone kind of thinks mistakenly that it goes high school coach. It's kind of the way it would go for players, right? High school players, college players, NBA players. But for coaching, there's some really good high school coaches that are better than some NBA coaches. People kind of forget that. Can you kind of speak on just how much the game is growing at these lower levels, and how good so many of these high school coaches are, college coaches, because everyone kind of maybe forgets that and thinks it's a linear progression, when in reality it's not.
Sure. Well, I think, to give high school coaches credit, I mean, every year that you don't know who you're going to have. You could lose 5 seniors and you got to start from scratch. A lot of times high school coaches will keep their same defense and just keep building each year, but offensively, depending on the talent, they'll some switches and changes just to give you a chance, give you the best chances of scoring and being better on offense. But I think there's some high school coaches that are excellent. I mean, there's a lot of them, and it's just, you're learning so much different styles. You're seeing more zone, a college coach, but NBA coaches are terrific. You can learn a lot from them. especially, sets and development. And then the college levels kind of, you have your high end coaches that you can steal stuff from and they're willing to share. But yeah, I mean, don't sleep on a good high school coach. I mean, them guys are really studying it, and you see it's cool as our basketball community, everyone's trying to learn and everyone helps each other out, which you don't get that in all other sports. And it's cool as when you go to a coaching clinic and you see all these high school coaches that are trying to better themselves and better their teams. But yeah, I mean, there's great coaches at every level. And I mean, there's some high school coaches that are as good as any college and pro coach out there.
It's super important that people will start realizing that, because there is such a wealth of knowledge at every single level. I'm curious, so we did mention the NBA. Maybe most listeners maybe know a lot of those coaches or those teams. Which coaches in the NBA do you think maybe run some really nice stuff that you really enjoy watching day in and day out and always find something new out of them?
I've always been a big Brad Stevens guy. Of course, Popovich back in the day. I mean, we used to steal a lot of his stuff. Steve Kerr when he was with Golden State, or he still is, but I mean, back in their winning times. But right now, I'm huge on Quinn Snyder from Utah. Spoelstra runs good stuff. Doc Rivers does. Nick Nurse. Rick Carlisle from Dallas. I mean, there's some great ones. But right now, I'm big on Quinn Snyder from Utah, just running different actions. And a lot of the Euro coaches do some good stuff too. I can't say his name very good, but Donovich, or however you say it, Abravich, or however you say it, but that guy's amazing. Dove deep into a lot of his stuff. Ryan Pannone, the G League coach, he's always putting out playbooks and plays, and a lot of it's on European coaches, and they run good action.
Oh no, definitely, and it's very so important to learn from coaches like that, and their tape is all over the internet, so it's definitely a great resource. Just to close off, I'm kind of curious, when you mentioned at the beginning, your team now, the West Michigan Aviation Academy, and how you guys are 11-4, going to the playoffs, looking to make a run. How is COVID? Because what you just said, your record, you guys have played 15 games. That's incredible. We here in New York don't even have a chance at a season. So I'm curious to know about how that's going for you guys, how the season went, and what the kind of protocol's been.
So the season started off, they kept pushing it back, and then all of a sudden it was February, and I'm like, I doubt we're going to have a season. It basically gave us 6 weeks, and we were like, we'll just play 3 games a week. That's the maximum you can play. Had 17, 18 games scheduled, and some teams, due to COVID, had to cancel some games and reschedule some games. But right now, what we're trying to do is just finish up the season. Some teams that are even in our area are starting to quarantine, just so there's no not play in the districts and make a tournament run. But right now, 11-4, we're playing really good basketball. 2 of our losses, we kind of got our butts kicked, but 2 of them were against really good opponents, and we played them right down to the wire. And I think right now we've won 7 in a row and just playing really good basketball. So we're kind of anxious to see the run that we can make, but we have a very tough challenge in our district. We have 3 of the top teams in the area. So we'll kind of see if we're ready for them. Tonight, we have a big challenge. We had a game get canceled due to COVID, one of our conference teams, and we ended up finding an opponent that's pretty dang good, Forest Hills Eastern, in our area. And they're able to help us out to come here, to finish up, because we have our senior night. So then after tonight, we have 1 more conference game tomorrow, and we're right into districts. So hopefully we have a good chance. But again, we have a really tough schedule, so we'll see where we're at.
Best of luck to your seniors, and it's great to think about how you were able to have a sort of season, and there will be playoffs, things will happen. I'm wishing the best of luck that everything's able to go as planned. And Coach, thank you so much for coming on the show and kind of sharing all this X's and O's knowledge, all these play diagram secrets that I'm gonna go and listen to the show over again, so I make sure I'm doing things right when I'm diagramming these plays. But really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that insight.
Oh, thanks again, John. Thanks for having me on, and I wish you the best of luck. Let's stay in touch.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.